views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren. Jaime. Today, we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Now, coming up on today's show, we go front and center with reaction to the conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, guilty on 3 counts of the death of George Floyd. And then also we'll talk about the recent status of Governor Andrew Cuomo's investigation, his handling of state nursing homes. We've got a legal expert to tell us and break us down what it all means. Then we'll also learn about an organization that's helping the community that's struggling with HIV and AIDS, as well as other chronic conditions. And then a little later on in the show, you'll meet and hear how one agency is providing emergency food, social services, and legal representation right here in the borough of the Bronx. And then finally, we'll introduce you to a community-based organization that's doing shelter, meals, groceries, as well as food rescue. So stay tuned, because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open. Today is Wednesday, April 28th. I'm Daren Jaime, and you're watching Open, a live interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV sets. We also want to welcome our viewers who are watching us on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, MNN's channel, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. We also encourage you to stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV, and then also our website at bronxnet.org. A lot has certainly gone on through the course of the past week. Can't take you through everything, but we can take you through a couple of things with our Bronx updates. Well, just over a week ago in Minneapolis, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin found guilty of murder in the death of George Floyd during arrest last May. The judge announced jurors had found Chauvin guilty on all 3 charges: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter on their second day of deliberations, deliberating for only more than 10 hours. After the verdict was read, Chauvin was immediately taken out of the courtroom in handcuffs, his bail revoked, and taken into custody of the Hennepin County Sheriff. Well, in other news, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced the Safe Summer NYC initiative, which is a 3-pronged effort expanding cure violence workers, deploying cops to violent areas, and creating a justice system task force focused on other potential shooters, among other steps. Now, the mayor stated the NYPD will reassign 200 cops to areas where the Big Apple is seeing the highest rates of gun violence as part of their annual summer program. That's it for our Bronx updates. We want you to stay with us. We got a great show coming up. Open continues coming up after this. Welcome back to the show. In recent news, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was convicted last Tuesday on all counts in the death of George Floyd. The death of George Floyd drawing widespread outrage last May after a video circulated online showing Derek Chauvin holding his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck on a Minneapolis street corner for more than 9 minutes. Well, joining us now to share more details is the associate editorial page editor of the New York Post, Michael Benjamin, who will join us talking about this, as well as New York City mayoral election. And Mike, good to have you.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you. Happy spring.
Hey, happy spring. I mean, just a little while ago, it was pretty cold. I mean, you never know what to expect in spring, but we're here and a lot to talk about. First of all, let's go back to last week, talk about the conviction of Derek Chauvin, something that hasn't been seen, where a police officer has been convicted at that level without even using a deadly weapon, but certainly his knee, deadly force.
Yes, deadly force and uncalled for. It was recorded on video. It was shared around the nation, around the world. The guy was caught red-handed doing something he shouldn't have done. Mr. Floyd was already detained. He was no longer resisting arrest. There was no need to keep his knee on his neck, compressing his airway and preventing him from properly breathing. And the Minneapolis jury, they did their job. They were fair and impartial. They followed the evidence. They followed what the prosecutors offered. They listened to the reasonable doubt that was raised by Chauvin's attorney, and they decided that the facts fit the charges, that Chauvin was guilty of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter in this case. I think they did the right thing in listening to what was presented. I mean, you had a testimony of a firefighter who happened by the scene and offered her assistance to make sure that Mr. Floyd, would not lose his life. They refused her assistance, and she testified tearfully. You had other officers who testified. You had the police chief testifying that what Chauvin did was not in keeping with the use of force or any standard procedures that police department actually encourages and practices. So you had his own colleagues in law enforcement as first responders saying what Chauvin did was beyond the bounds and should not have happened. And the jury listened to them, listened to the medical examiner, and they didn't think any of the defense witnesses or experts or those who were claiming that because of his past drug use or his possibly having used drugs prior to the incident contributed to his passage. It didn't matter. He died because of compression to his neck, and he could no longer breathe, and he died. That's what happened, and the jury found that to be the case.
1 week later, in your reflections, talk to me about what does this actually mean for people in communities of color?
One, you're seeing changes in police department procedures. I mean, they're all across the nation have been put on notice. Legislatures and city councils and other leaders are pressing the police to change their behavior towards people of color when it comes to their arrest and the use of force. And you're seeing juries are not just believing cops anymore. They're seeing actual videotape evidence of what transpired and are making sound judgments based on the evidence. You had recently last week the North Carolina police officer who shot the motorist he had detained in the back. His own body cam showed what transpired, and it contradicted the lie he told investigators that the guy he shot had taken his taser and tried to use it against him. That was not the case. So you had his lie contradicted by his own video evidence. And when he tried to have an appeal, the judge says, it is what it is. You're guilty. And there's nothing your lawyers did that prevented you from having a fair trial. I think you're going to see this across the country, this sort of thing happening. One of the things we also missed was that about 2 years ago, another Minneapolis police officer had shot a woman, and he was fired and tried and convicted. So it's not as though it's something that's entirely unusual in the last couple of years when you have these kind of high-profile cases and justice being done. I think African Americans, other people of color, can finally see some measure of justice coming when it comes to bad encounters with police officers who have acted with ill intent.
Let's turn to the local front and switch our news now to politics. As we see, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, we've got a mayoral race going on. We've got somebody who's going to take his place, possibly. What's going on?
Well, the latest poll that came out last week with New York One, where they actually did all the way through ranked choice voting, because now this year voters are not just voting for their favorite; they're asked to vote for their top five in rank order. And so that as you go through the round, if nobody gets 50% plus one on the first go through, then you go through the votes that, let's say, the number 8 person in the race who was his voters' second choice and third choice. Those votes are then assigned to the remaining candidates until somebody gets 50% plus one. And in the New York 1 poll, Andrew Yang was number one, followed by, I believe, Eric Adams, followed by Scott Stringer. And when they played it out through, I believe, 7 rounds of voting, through using ranked choice voting, Andrew Yang beats Scott Stringer 57% to 43%. And this was a poll of likely Democratic voters. So it's something that's good for Yang, but it's also something that's good for Stringer, knowing that he is the second choice for many voters, so they can adjust their campaigns accordingly. This week, Scott Stringer got the endorsement of the UFT. Eric Adams got the endorsement the week before of the fire officers and other unions. It's beginning to play itself out, and unions are now being smart. They're also selecting their first, second, and third choices. I believe the Working Families Party selected Scott Stringer as their first choice, followed by Maya Wiley, followed by Diane Morales, and then followed by Maya Wiley as their top 3 choices that their membership has said they'd like to see, in the position of hopefully getting elected mayor. So it's gonna be an interesting race, and I would urge voters in the Bronx and across the city to fill out their ballots 1 through 5, because that way you'll have a voice in whoever gets elected mayor. At least your top 5 choices have an opportunity of becoming mayor. If not your first choice, then the person who you think is the second choice, who would be just as good, wins the race, and you still have a voice and an involvement in who becomes the next mayor.
When you talk about ranked choice voting, a lot of New Yorkers are still up in arms. I mean, it's been decided, but the fact of the matter is there's still a lot of opposition to ranked choice voting. Any chance this will be a one and done?
No, because it's in the city charter, and voters had a chance 2 years ago to vote on it, and they voted in favor of overwhelmingly. Members, elected officials, union leaders, they somehow didn't manage to voice their opinions then. And now that it's coming into fruition, they want to say, well, you got to stop this. This is not a good idea. Well, voters already decided. It's in the city charter. Now, what can happen is the new city council in 2022, they can vote to change the ranked choice voting law. But since many of them were elected under ranked choice voting, I doubt they're going to change it. And so I don't see much of a movement to do away with it. I think it's something that's new. You learn how to use it, and it works. I mean, in the Bronx, we just had a special election where ranked choice voting was used to select the successor in the city council to Richie Torres. Osvaldo Feliz won, I believe through 7 rounds, he wound up being the winner. And I believe over in the 11th council district, Eric Dinowitz was elected to city council to replace a member who left to become a judge.
Can't let you go without talking about the borough of the Bronx. We've got a borough president race that is heating up highly. How do you see things going? We've got Councilmember Fernando Cabrera. Many people consider him to be the front runner. You got Natalia Hernandez, Assemblywoman over there, and then also you got Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson, who's considered the big 3. Am I right about that?
You're right. No, they're the big 3. They're the ones that have the greatest chance of winning, who have some experience. Fernando Cabrera has been a councilman for 2 terms or more. He's got a shot, but if you look at his record outside of running for the city council, he's lost his previous races. He lost his 2 races in an attempt to run for state senate, and I'm not quite sure how exactly he's doing for borough president. I know that Hernandez and Gibson have been working hard, accumulating endorsements both from community members as well as unions. Gibson appears to be the strongest in getting endorsements across the board and working very hard and being out in the public. It's going to be an interesting race. I know Gibson has, the desire to become, the first African-American elected Bronx borough president. We'll see what happens. She seems to have made inroads with many communities across the borough. And with ranked choice voting, it's anybody's ball game. But the harder you work and the more alliances you make, voters might decide, well, you might not be my first choice, but you're my second choice, and that might be enough to get somebody over the finish line in the first 3 or 4 or 5 rounds, depending on how many candidates there are for borough president. But you're right, they are the top 3. But I would rank it as far as who looks to be in the lead. I would say it's Gibson, Fernandez, and Cabrera.
Wow. Okay. Interesting to see. We'll see how it goes from here. Michael Benjamin, thank you so much for being with us.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
All righty. Now, if you want more information, please continue to follow Mike Michael on Twitter at SquarePegDem. Again, SquarePegDem. That's where you can find Michael on Twitter. And of course, we encourage you to stay connected to him at the New York Post, but also we need you to stay connected with us right here at Open. We're going to take a quick break. We got more show coming up right after this.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
And welcome back. Over the past 2 months, two scandals have actually consumed the administration of New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo, which is the state's gross mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic, especially in the state's nursing homes, and the governor's reported harassment of several women around him. Here sharing a little bit more about this is the founding partner at the Boyd Law Group, Patrick J. Boyd. And Patrick, I'll start off by saying, when we talk about this pandemic, a lot of people were giving Governor Cuomo a lot of praise, particularly for the fact of how he handled it. Later on, we understand the challenge rises about the nursing homes. For someone who's not so familiar about the nursing home scandal, please walk us through that.
Sure. And I agree with you. In particular, in the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of coverage and attention to his press conferences on the pandemic and his what a lot of people have embraced as common sense feedback on how to deal with the pandemic and how to protect ourselves by using protective clothing and those kinds of things. The problem seems to have been that early on, when there was a concern about how many people would be treated and were ill, where those people would go and whether or not they could be or should be sent to nursing homes, which had the capacity to serve people and help, but perhaps did not have the protections in place for those people that were already in the nursing home, and to make sure those people in the nursing homes who we now know are definitely the most vulnerable might not be protected if extra patients were forced to come into the nursing homes. Cuomo did mandate that some nursing homes take patients that had COVID. Some of those patients went to nursing homes and spread that COVID, and people died. And so he's faced a lot of attacks for that. And obviously, in the political process, he's supposed to be scrutinized for everything he does. So I think some of those attacks are fair.
Well, when we talk about that, you got attacks, you got people who consequently died as a result. When we talk about the actual consequences for that, what are they?
At this point, political more than legal. One of the things that he did that has been of grave concern to lawyers in particular is that when he decided to tell these nursing homes, you must take these patients, he also said to these nursing homes, I'm going to grant you immunity for anything that happens to patients who come into the nursing homes. In other words, you must take these patients, but if you make a mistake, nobody can bring a legal claim against you. And people definitely have been upset about that. And imagine you have a loved one who's in a safe nursing home. You've been told to keep that loved one in the nursing home because it's the safest place. And then the government mandates that patients who have COVID are transferred to that nursing home, and your loved one is not cared for, grows ill, and dies. It's certainly a reason to be upset, and based on the law and the way Governor Cuomo acted, a person who lost that loved one would not have a legal claim by virtue of the immunity he granted to the nursing homes. Very controversial position he took.
And there's a lot of things talking about immunity. Not only did he give immunity there, he gave immunity also at several other places as well. Does that hurt in terms of from a legal perspective? And I guess it does when you talk about these particular families who've lost so many in nursing homes, but outside the families in nursing homes, how many people are actually handcuffed by these legal decisions?
I mean, I think the legislation is going to handcuff a great number of aggrieved parties. And one of the problems we have at the law, of course, is that we don't know what the courts are ultimately going to say. We just know what the legislature has said so far. So I think there'll be court battles to come to determine the scope of the immunity and its impact. But at first blush, it looks bad and it looks unfortunate. And then the added problem for our governor is that there's now been this scandal about his reporting of the number of deaths in the nursing homes. He was releasing data indicating that a certain number of people died. And one of the people on his own administration came forward saying, no, that data is not correct or accurate. Actually, the numbers are far greater. So to the extent that he made a mistake and then tried to cover it up with the political reporting of numbers. There are some grave concerns about that are certainly being investigated and should be investigated, of course.
Yeah. And then on his own personal life, in addition to these political scandals, the numbers have just recently been released about his polling. And for the first time ever, looks at the lowest polling numbers in his administration.
The polling numbers have gone down. I can't quite decide, Daren, and I know we're going to talk about this other part of it, but they perked up some, of course, when he was seen as this national leader with respect to COVID, and he even had a book about it, I guess. But then the post-COVID unraveling of some of these tales has been damning. And then in addition, these allegations of sexual harassment, which certainly take a person who was, as a legislator, seen to be a champion of women's rights and put his own actions under the microscope in terms of, on the one hand, advocating for women, but not, at least allegedly, controlling his own behavior in a manner that's adequately respectful of women that work with him.
So all this leads to an impeachment investigation, and bring us up to speed with this impeachment investigation. Do we think that first of all, let's walk through it. How is that going to go down?
Sure. So to be clear, there's really two different investigations going on. First, there's the Attorney General, who's been appointed to investigate his actions as to, I think there's 11 women who have made allegations against him now. And she has subpoena powers. She will interview witnesses, and her investigation is probably the most interesting for us because it will result in a public report, okay? And it can continue even if they're investigating him after his term in office expires. On the other hand, there's the impeachment process, which resolves around an investigation into his conduct, but might ultimately not be finished, if you will, before he ceases his term in office, and they're not allowed to impeach him after he leaves. So if you were to look at the two investigations, probably the one spearheaded by the Attorney General is the more important of the two, because we'll get some public results from it with a report, and because it can't sort of be shut down if it doesn't get completed before he finishes his term in office.
Yeah. So I guess the big question is, will he seek re-election, given the fact that his term in office is coming to a close? Have you heard anything?
I certainly haven't yet. I think the thing that I've been interested in as an employment lawyer is focusing a little bit on these allegations of these women, because one of the things that people may not understand is that, and there's at least 11 allegations with different women, right? So they run the gamut of experience. But a lot of these women who have come forward don't have a monetary motivation for coming forward. Many of them have claims that are so old, they wouldn't have any ability to pursue the claim for damages anymore. Their time to file in court has expired. Many of them have claims that are not significant enough to rise to the level of being actionable. For example, him asking a woman to kiss her. That may be offensive to her and unpleasant, but that wouldn't be a legally actionable claim. Nevertheless, the woman brought the claim to challenge his behavior, right? And I do think that when you look at the allegations in that span of them and notice that a lot of the women, now they may have political motivations, right, but don't have monetary motivations for their claims, that does at least give some insight into what they're doing and lend some credibility to them that might not always exist when you have a plaintiff with a sexual harassment claim.
Right. We got the Attorney General who's conducting her investigation, and obviously we know that investigation continues to be ongoing. The impeachment investigation. I want to ask you, on general, how long do you think that takes for legislators to be able to conduct an impeachment investigation?
It seems that there's a good chance that it will take too long. That is, that his term will be over before they have completion of the investigation. We haven't had an impeachment of a governor in New York since 1913. So it's been a long time since it's happened. The standard is not clearly articulated because it hasn't been something that's been adjudicated in a long time. So my suspicion, although I don't have any unique insider sources, is that it's going to take too long for us to get a resolution on that point, rather that the impeachment will be something hanging over his head going into re-election, just like these allegations of sexual harassment were.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing us up to speed about this. And of course, if people want more information, they can visit Patrick at his website, theboydlawgroup.com. There you can find out more information and get connected to him. We encourage you now. Don't go anywhere. We've got more open coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. April is National Minority Health Month, and Alliance for Positive Change is actually transforming the lives of New Yorkers living with HIV and AIDS and other chronic illnesses, helping people access medical care, manage and overcome addiction, escape homelessness, get back to work, as well as to being able to find community. Now, joining us to share a little bit more in these details is the Associate Director of Supportive Services at the Alliance for Positive Change, Velia Hernandez. And Velia, good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Oh, glad to have you. And it's certainly an important conversation. When we talk about National Minority Health Month, give me a little bit of insight as to what that actually means to you.
Well, for me and for the agency, what it means that we have realized that minorities are receive poor care in New York City and need a lot of education. So we are committed to actually help them achieve better health outcomes by providing the education and the necessary connections to medical. We do provide HIV testing, Hep C testing. Currently, we're doing the COVID-19 test, in addition to vaccination in collaboration with some of our partners. So we really realized that not only the HIV/AIDS epidemic, that was the way that we started, was being impacting our community. We realized that there are other areas that need to be addressed, and we took a lead on it.
Yeah. Communities of color have actually been disproportionately affected. We know in the borough of the Bronx in particular, we know the numbers, not number 62, that's the campaign that's out there presently. A little bit about how you're addressing communities of color in the work that you do.
One of the ways that we're addressing is we have a mobile van that we go out in communities and we provide the necessary education and offer testing, including the COVID testing, like I said before, harm reduction services, and we make sure to link them to one of our services that we have in one of our 6 locations, and to one of our partners on medical care. So we have over 100 or 200 peers that provide the outreach in communities, and that includes not only Manhattan and Brooklyn, we also are very active in the Bronx. And they are the ones to actually tell us where we need to go to be able to provide the information and the necessary care that is needed. It's been our commitment for the past 30 years to have a partnership with our peers, because they are the best people to tell us where to go and what is needed in the community, because a lot of them have that live experience that lead us into become more proactive in providing and assessing funding to provide care.
You use that word active. I want to talk about a form of being active. It's called Alliance on the Move, and I'm a little familiar with it, but why don't you share with our viewers a little bit about Alliance on the Move?
Well, like I said before, Alliance of the Move is our mobile van. So in this van, we have trained staff and peers that provide the HIV Hep C testing, the COVID-19 testing, and at the Washington Heights site, we use the van to provide the COVID vaccine. And we go through Chelsea, we go Midtown Manhattan, we go to those areas where we know that been impacted by not only the COVID, but other illnesses, to provide education and offer the support that is needed. So when we think that we're going to stay home, we don't stay home because somebody from the community says, hey, we need to partner with you, and because they know that we have such a range of services and specialized educational services, they always call on us, and we gladly go and serve the community. The advantage that we have is that we are, the staff is mixed as well as the peer. We are bilingual. We have various language. We have Russian, English, French, Spanish. So that allow us to provide the care and the education in any community. But we actually try to go and be an impact in the minority community of colors, because that's the one that is more affected because of the stigma, the fear of seeking education, the fear of being turned around because you don't have insurance. And then some people like to judge, and you cannot be judging anyone without knowing the real story.
Yeah. I know that a lot of us have still trying to get around this pandemic. It's been a major challenge for a lot of organizations. How's it been for you and your community-based organization, given the fact that your job is reaching people and touching people, and the pandemic has kind of put that at a halt?
Well, one of the things that we did immediately when we have to close the office to the COVID, what we did is immediately we started to provide services over the phone. And we concentrated and give people hope through the phone and make sure that they have what the necessary means, such as food. Food insecurity is a big thing that happened during COVID and among our community, not only the people that we serve, but also the people around our sites, our offices. So everything we started immediately on the phone, then slowly taking the necessary precautions. There were people that we needed to go and knock at that door to leave a voucher on the door to say, here, I'm leaving you a voucher for food. So that way you could, meet your needs, enrolling people into city programs for them to get food delivery. So we were very smart and savvy, and the management and the upper management ensure and secure that we were trained in terms of safety precautions and gave us the necessary equipment, the PPE equipment that we needed to go out when we needed to go out. We limited some of the outreach face-to-face, of course, because of COVID, but some of us started coming back to the office around May last year, and started to bring our people back, those individuals that were able to make it to the office and provided the necessary equipment for safety.
Yeah. I know that you do a lot of relying on your peers, and the peers are actually the ones that actually are on the front lines as well. Share with me how the work of peers has made the difference for you in this time.
Well, in this time, like I said, a lot of them were doing the engagement through the phones because we trained them as to how to provide the information over the phone to the people that were reaching out. Some of them that were more proactive and were verbalizing and expressing, I'm not afraid because I know what I have to do. We allow them to go to selective areas, and especially in the mobile van and maintaining social distancing. So the peers were a great help because we wanted to maintain that social distance. So we needed to have somebody keeping an eye on that distance between people, be able to offer masks. We did mass mailing of mass hand sanitizer, the vouchers, gift cards for food, and the peers were very instrumental in helping us put everything in envelopes and taking it to the post office, dropping it off. And they continue to be, like I said, the instrument for us to do our job before the pandemic and during the pandemic. And I give it to our management team and the directors that we always included the peer and the necessary education for them to maintain their own safety and how to relate to others about, how they need to maintain safety and educate them the importance of hand sanitizing, washing their hands, wearing masks, how to wear the mask properly, and also to reach out to them in the event that they needed something specifically that was more than a mask.
Tell me a little bit about what you got coming up in the future before we close our segment.
Oh my God, we have so much going on. So right now we are providing the COVID-19 at the Casa Washington's Heights location, and We did a first round of vaccination for peers, staff, and some family members, and we hope to be able to include the community. Every project that starts small, but we're going to continue to educate the community, not only our patients, our clients that come here. We want to continue to educate them about the importance of seeking medical attention, the importance of talking to somebody about the barriers that they have, and because through them, we learn, and then we could go fight for funding. Then we could communicate what the needs are, and the only way to do it is to be out there. It's to be going out. It's like I'm here in the office, but I have an hour that I go outside and I talk to community members to get to know what is that they need in you, in your family, and through there. By doing that, I get a lot of people coming up. So we're going to be educating people about the importance of us minority to go take care of ourselves in all the senses, not only on the medical side, but also on the environmental side.
Well, I do want to say that a lot is going on at the Alliance for Change, and thank you so much for
plenty.
I'm sorry for taking the time for being with us here today and really sharing a little bit about all the work that's going on. Thank you so much, Velia.
You're welcome. Thank you. See you soon.
Oh, we'll see you soon.
Yes.
All right, now if you want, stay with us for a second. And we want you to stay with us too. Now listen, if you want more information, visit the website, alliance.nyc. Also, you can follow them on Twitter and Instagram at @thealliance_NYC. Do have a lot more show coming up. Stay with us. Open returns right after this. Welcome back. Part of the Solution, better known as POTS, is an award-winning multi-service agency in the Bronx that is nourishing the basic needs of hunger of all who come through its doors. Helping low-income families and individuals since 1982, the organization has grown to become a leading provider of emergency food, social services, and legal representation right here in the Bronx. Here sharing more is the volunteer coordinator at Part of the Solution, Stephanie Ashley Caban. And Stephanie, good to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here virtually.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's where we are, but it really has given me the opportunity to meet a lot of great people, POTS included, and yourself. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
We talked about the work that you do in terms of really providing a lot of services to a lot of different people. And so when you talk about the mission of POTS, share a little bit about that mission.
Yeah, sure. So our mission is to be a loving community that nourishes the basic needs and hungers of all those who come through our door, kind of like you said. And now that the pandemic has worsened so drastically, I think the first part of that mission, to be a loving community, was really hard for us, and it still is. Like, how do you be a loving community to someone who's coming to you for food or housing or et cetera, and then telling them, no, step back 6 feet as like your first response to them, right? But it's something that we've been able to safely still continue doing. And so we are like a one-stop shop of services that have services like the food pantry and a lunch service program. We have a legal team and an employment team on site. We have a case management team that can help people apply for SNAP and WIC or public assistance. We also have showers and a medical and dental clinic on site. And regardless of insurance or regardless of documentation, anybody can use any of those services as long as they reside in the Bronx. And so we're still running those services. Most of them are virtually, and some of them are outside the building as well. So it's a lot. And I'm the volunteer coordinator, and I recruit all the volunteers who help assist our staff and partner with our staff to make sure that those services are being provided to the community.
I'm going to get into the volunteers in just a second, but I want to have an opportunity to also talk a little bit about food insecurity, because that's huge, right? And I know a guest a little bit later on in the show will also be sharing a little bit about food insecurity. Mm-hmm. But what have you seen by way of population, and what have you seen come through your doors in terms of increase decreased due to COVID-19?
Yeah. So we have the food pantry, and we also have the lunch program. Pre-pandemic, we served around 90 families every day from Monday through Saturday. When the pandemic started, we saw that number triple. And I think the most that we've seen in terms of families coming for groceries was 274, I think it was on one day. And that number is it's fluctuating, but it's still up in the hundreds and 200s. Food insecurity is so closely linked to so many other insecurities, unfortunately, which is why we have all the other programs that we do. But food programs are the heart and soul of POTS. And so when people come for food, we do an intake with them and we get to know, okay, maybe there are other services you might need. And so somebody might come for groceries and also realize, oh, we have an employment coach that can help you fix up your resume. We also have the medical clinic. If you don't have a primary care doctor, you can come downstairs, right? And so we've been able to connect a lot more people with other services, but we also see people on the line who are just struggling with two things, like two major things that they need to pay for: rent and food. And we're grateful that we can provide that relief, that they don't have to pay for food when they come here, but it's definitely still such a really, really hard struggle to see on the line.
Yeah. I want to talk about doing the work that you do. Obviously, you can't do it by yourself. You yourself are a volunteer coordinator who really reaches out and gets the help of others in the community. Share with us a little bit about the volunteers, where they come from, and the impact they're actually making within the organization.
Yeah. So volunteers are my kind of my life's work. I love working with volunteers. It's my profession. And so pre-pandemic, we had 40 volunteers here every day, Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, working in the food programs, working in our day-to-day services with clothing, with mail. We had some working upstairs with our legal department. So I worked with 40 volunteers every day, which is great to work with 40 different personalities every day. It's overwhelming, but it's wonderful. And now, because of COVID, my main job has not been, my main job used to be engaging the community and the volunteers, like engaging them as together. And now it's more so I need to keep the volunteers safe and limit community engagement as much as possible in order to ensure their safety because of COVID. And that's been really, really hard. And so I've had to limit the amount of volunteers in the building due to physical distancing. And I've had to encourage volunteers to, step back from working with clients and step back from talking with clients, which has been really a struggle. But we've had such a big increase in new volunteers when March 2020 hit that I was completely overwhelmed with getting to know new community members and new volunteers who Googled, how do I help? And found us, and all of them have stayed. It's been more than a year, and it's really, really exciting to get to know new faces and to now hopefully work with them to figure out a way to best engage with the community in a very safe way.
Yeah. And the volunteers obviously play a major part in what you do, but if you could just look and say right now, with a crystal ball going towards the future, how do you see things happening by way of, do you feel like you'll get the same level of volunteer engagement post-COVID probably that you did before?
I think we will. And I think that there will be so much more of an emphasis on volunteers co-laboring with us towards justice. I think that we've seen a lot of injustices happen during the pandemic that has brought a lot of people, a lot of clients, a lot of community members to our doors, that there's no way I can't not share that with volunteers. And I can't not share that with the volunteer community in the hopes that we are kind of going towards the same goal of being an anti-poverty organization and fighting for more justice for our community, for the Bronx. So
yeah, we talk about next steps, and I know that that's part of what you do. You have a next step program. When we look at what's happening right now, coming out of the pandemic, we can definitely assure that there will be a lot more people who possibly will be homeless, evicted, and the like. Give a little bit about the next step program and the work that you guys do, because I think it's important, because if people are really going to be going through this, here's a helpful means that might be able to help them out.
Yeah, definitely. So one part of our mission is to see people in a time of crisis, help them reach stability, and then ultimately self-sufficiency. And so that part is part of our next step services portion in the event that people work us out of a job, right? I love what I do, and I think everyone does here on site as well. But we're hoping that poverty, right, it doesn't exist anymore. But part of the next step services program is the legal team, case management, employment, and stability teams. And so we assist a lot of people with applying for public assistance or applying for housing. We assist people with any like financial goals that they might have, financial counseling, or helping people get like their GED or their high school equivalency diploma. We can also, our legal team is very, very focused right now on rental assistance and eviction prevention, especially since a lot of our clients, a lot of people in our community haven't been able to pay rent for 13 months. And so what does that look like when the eviction moratorium ends in May 1st? What is the real relief going to look like? And so we've been trying to host a lot of workshops for the community to address those concerns. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There is going to be a severe and big housing crisis when this is over, hopefully soon. And I'm not too sure what it's going to look like. And I don't think anyone knows what it's going to look like, but making sure that we're there and we're present with the most up-to-date information of what the state is telling us and what we can share with our clients to provide as many resources as possible.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Stephanie. I think we don't know what's going to happen, right? But while you don't know what's going to happen, the good thing is that POTS will be present. And I think that that's a wonderful thing because a lot of people will need the services that you provide. Stephanie, Ashley, Caban, thank you so much for being with us here on Open.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, now I want you to know if you want more information, please go ahead and visit their website. How do you do that? Well, they're at potsbronx.org. And then also you can follow them on social media at potsbronx. Now, we encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We still have more show coming up. Open will return right after this.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
And welcome back to the show. Crossroads Community Service is an organization that's actually dedicated to help a growing number of people in New York City who struggle to find food security and safe, dependable shelter. Now, in the time of COVID-19, Crossroads is persevering in its mission to unite our community in the fight to end hunger as well as homelessness. Joining me now to share a little bit more about the details is the Executive Director of Crossroads Community Services, NYC, Jesse Ramos. And Jesse, good to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me, Daren. Pleasure.
Very important. Glad, because it's a very important conversation when we talk about our city's homeless. And there's a lot. The number continues to rise. But in this pandemic right now, how do you see the homeless population, and how would you talk about the homeless population right now in New York City? Growing?
We certainly have seen a spike in the need for our services. More people are lining up for meals significantly. You know, we have a dinner program where it went from pre-COVID, it was like, it ranged between 250 to 300 people lining up for a dinner every evening. And now that number has jumped to like 400, sometimes 450. So that's a considerable jump. We don't survey our guests, so I can't tell you whether there's been an increase in homelessness. That kind of metric we don't keep. Mm-hmm. But judging by the people that need to line up for dinner and groceries and our breakfast program, we definitely have seen an increase in that. That's addressing the food insecurity people are facing.
Right. And, you know, you're very aggressive in your fight against homelessness as well as also, you know, dealing with hunger. And hunger is very big. You know, hunger is very huge for a lot of people. Food insecurity is a major challenge. Share with us a little about the organization and the work that you're doing to really end this fight against hunger.
So we have a multifaceted food program. We have a breakfast program that's every Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday at 7:45 a.m. in the morning, where people can come and get a warm meal. And then we have a dinner program in partnership with Coalition for the Homeless. And we provide dinner every evening at 5:30. And that's where we see the spike. That's the service that we have seen a significant growth in. And we hand out dinner. It's grab and go kind of situation because of COVID. And then on Saturdays, we like to call it a Saturday cafe, where we serve breakfast at 10 a.m. It's usually pastries, fruit, and coffee. And then every Thursday, we do a pantry, a food pantry, where people come and pick up groceries. And we hand out groceries to depending on the number of family they are. Something interesting about the food pantry, I asked my manager if he had an idea how many guests from the Bronx we had. He said, on our roster, we have 515 guests from the Bronx zip codes that are coming down and picking up groceries every Thursday. That to me is very revealing that we have that many guests. That's a long hike. We're at 51st and Park Avenue. So they're coming from the Bronx uptown. And during the pandemic, we had this wonderful partnership with Transfer Nation, a nonprofit. They're guys and gals that have bikes with a cart attached to them. They would come pick up groceries at 51st and Park and deliver them to families at the Bronx addresses. That's an uphill bike with like 30 pounds of groceries in the back. So it's really remarkable how people have come together to help.
I think it speaks to the larger issue of, you know, there is food insecurity all around the city. And some areas there's easy access. Other areas it's not so easy access. But by virtue of what you're saying right now, I think that we can contend that your place is a pretty stable place in terms of access for everyone.
Yes, we have a great food rescue. We partner with United Way. We have state and federal grants, which are essentially food credits, you know, they give us allowances to purchase food only. So we as any organization, it's by word of mouth, and the word got out, and we're very happy that we're able to serve the larger community. And by larger, I'm identifying Manhattan. I know that there's plenty of, not plenty, but there's other food pantries in Queens and Brooklyn, et cetera. I know that Coalition for the Homeless is stationed in Brooklyn, for instance. But it's about a partnership with all the other organizations so we can, you know, provide the services that we do.
Yeah. I want to take a moment and talk a little bit about your work that you're doing with women, because in addition to all the food and, you know, homelessness issues that you're dealing with, you also provide a shelter for women.
Yes, we do. Now, we have been closed, to be clear, we've been closed now for a year. It's going to be a little more to a year. We have a small common room. We call it the common room, where we have a shelter for 10 women. And that was pre-COVID, and that operated. And then we try to sort of make it a little more warmer experience. Our guests would come, they would have dinner with us. Volunteers would volunteer to provide a dinner. We'd set up the beds, and they would sleep, 10 to a room. Because of COVID and health concerns, and it's the same room where our volunteers come and serve meals, we've had to close the shelter, and it remains closed, but we're keeping our ear to the ground, so to speak, and working with other agencies. And as soon as they're able to open up, we plan to reopen ours. But that is very challenging. And what made us different is that we just kept it to women only. One, to create a safe environment. And because the larger homeless population is men that are experiencing homelessness, women and children too. So we were focused on helping the woman population that experiences homeless. But we hope to reopen. I just don't have a clue as to when that's going to happen. It may not be until fall.
Oh, no, fine, understood. But give me a little insight into how you're navigating post-COVID-19. I'm not going to say post because we're not out of it, but certainly the worst is pretty much behind us, we believe. Talk to us about how you've navigated through the COVID pandemic.
Well, 2 weeks ago, we had a vaccination. We partnered again with Coalition for the Homeless, and they sent a medical truck over, and we were able to vaccinate I believe it was a little like, it was a small group, but like 20 to 30 guests, we were able to vaccinate them. That was a small step. It was a trial. So now we hope to have it again and distribute up to 100. The whole Johnson & Johnson crisis with the possibility of it not being safe threw a monkey wrench, because we wanted to provide a vaccination that you just had to show up once, because of the instability of our people experiencing homelessness. So that's something that we're working on. We're also weighing the possibility that we're going to ask all our volunteers at Crossroads, if you're going to volunteer, to make sure you're vaccinated. And actually taking a soft survey among our volunteers, most of our volunteers are vaccinated. That adds another layer of safety so that we can start opening up a little more in terms of our interaction with our guests. You know, all the restrictions were put in for everyone's safety, in particular our guests. They were the most vulnerable. And also we were concerned about our volunteers. Looking forward, I'm just consulting with several experts in the field. How much can we open up? Our pantry used to be a shopping model, meaning we'd have a room full of groceries and the individuals could come in and choose the food they wanted. Right now, we sort of have to choose for them because the confines are too small, but that's another thing we're addressing. We're looking into air filtration, purifying the air and making it as safety as possible so we can open up all our services where our guests are able to come indoors and experience receiving a meal or doing shopping, because that's what makes a difference, as opposed to just lining up and getting the plastic bag, which is crucial. Yeah. I don't want to undermine that. It's crucial, but we want to go back. We're looking forward to the day where we can give them a place to sit down and have a meal.
I think we're all looking forward to that day when we can really get back to a sense of normalcy, or a new normal, that we could all be able to sit down, enjoy one another, and enjoy one another's company. Jesse, once I've enjoyed the segment with you, and definitely thank you for the work that you're doing and taking care of those who are hungry, and definitely those who are homeless, the women, all the great work that you're doing over at Crossroads. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Daren, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Jesse Ramos, our guest here on Open. Now, listen, I want to let you know, if you want more information, do us a favor. Go to their website, and you can visit them at crossroadsnyc.org. And then you can follow them on social media at Crossroads Community NYC. Well, we come to the end of our show today, and definitely want to thank all of our guests for joining us, but most of all, I want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. And if you missed any part of today's show, of course, you can catch the Recablecast on BronxNet Channel 67. Of course, if you have Verizon Files, that'd be Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. We always encourage you to stay connected to us on our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. Now, if you want a brand new episode of Open, come on back and join us on Friday morning. My girl, Rena Valentine, will join us, and she'll have arts, entertainment, talk a little COVID maybe, but most of all, keep you entertained and you know what's happening. All right, I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless. Most of all, keep this channel wide open.